My name is Ethan Hale, and I was 20 when betrayal first etched itself into my bones. It wasn't an enemy who wounded me. It was my own family, the people who swore they'd always be my anchor, who turned their backs on me for the sake of my younger brother. I'm 34 now, standing at the helm of a life I built from the wreckage. But until this moment, I've never spoken the truth aloud. This is my confession. Back then, I was just a kid in a small coastal town in Washington. Our house clung to a cliffside, its cedar siding weathered by salt air and storms. To outsiders, we looked picture perfect. My father, Robert, was a fisherman with hands rough as rope. My mother, Elaine, a librarian whose voice carried the quiet patience of the books she loved. My brother, Mason, 2 years younger, was the golden child, charming enough to talk the tide into stillness. And then there was me, the quiet one, tucked away in the attic with wires, circuits, and ideas. Mason won sailing races and applause. My parents lined the living room wall with his trophies and medals, each one clinking like a hymn of pride. My contributions, building a tide tracking app for local fishermen at 15, or rewiring our busted radio at 13, were barely acknowledged. A distracted "good job, Ethan" from my mother, already turning back to Mason's latest triumph. The favoritism wasn't subtle. It showed most clearly on birthdays. Mason received sleek wetsuits, new phones, even a hand-carved boat model that gleamed like a prize. I received second-hand tools, or a used programming manual with a cracked spine. My father would clap my shoulder and say, "You're the practical one." His words, meant as praise, felt like stones in my chest. So I buried the sting. I worked, saved, and by 18 I was repairing tech for half the town. I earned a partial scholarship to study computer science in Seattle. For the first time, it felt like the horizon was opening, but the foundation of my family was already fractured, ready to collapse. I still remember the day my acceptance letter arrived. I ran into the kitchen clutching the paper, only to find my parents laughing at one of Mason's sailing videos. I shared my news, half tuition covered, a dream within reach. My mother glanced up, offered a thin smile. My father nodded, barely pulling his eyes from the screen. Then Mason walked in, announcing he'd qualified for a national sailing championship. Suddenly, the room erupted in celebration. My letter lay forgotten on the table, edges curling in the damp air. Later, I overheard my father whisper, "Mason's got a real shot at something big. We need to protect that." Word sank like an anchor into my chest. In Seattle, my scholarship covered tuition, but rent and food quickly drained my savings. I worked 2 jobs, biked everywhere, survived on rice and bruised fruit. Then in my 3rd year, the university slashed my scholarship. I was short $4,200, a sum that might as well have been a fortune. Desperate, I called home. "Mom, Dad, I just need help covering rent." $600 a month, just for now. The line went heavy. My mother sighed. "Things are tight. The boat needs repairs. Mason's competition fees are expensive." My father added, "You're resourceful, Ethan. You'll figure it out." And just like that, I was alone. I picked up a 3rd job, stocking vending machines at night, surviving on stale bread and cheap coffee. One evening, I fainted in class. My professor caught me before I hit the floor, pressed a $500 emergency aid form into my hands. That money kept me alive for 6 weeks. When summer came, I drove home in my rusted hatchback, only to find a brand new sailboat gleaming on our dock. Mason grinned, proud. "Mom and Dad got it for my nationals." A $40,000 vessel. The same parents who couldn't spare $600 to keep me housed had poured everything into his dream. That was the moment the betrayal carved its deepest wound. I cut them off. No calls, no emails. I vanished. Anger became fuel. I built an app, a navigation tool for coastal businesses, that grew steadily into real income. By graduation, I had job offers, investors, and something more valuable than either, proof that I could survive without them. At 29, I'd built Blue Wave Systems, a tech company employing dozens, later selling my second venture for $15 million. On the surface, I was thriving, but in the quiet, the old scars remained. Then one day in Tacoma, while visiting a company I'd acquired, I saw him, my father. Older, frailer, clutching a worn notebook. He approached the receptionist asking if I worked there. When he saw me, his eyes filled with shock. We sat down in a meeting room. His voice trembled as he spoke. My mother was sick, he said. Heart failure. She prayed for me daily. And then came the truth I'd carried unknowingly for years. They had mortgaged the house to clear Mason's debts. $32,000. Parties, gear, that sailboat. We thought you'd be fine, my father whispered. You didn't need us the way Mason did. But you were struggling, weren't you? His words broke something open in me. $32,000. Enough to have spared me years of hunger, exhaustion, humiliation. It wasn't neglect. It was a choice. I didn't forgive him then. I don't know if I ever will, but I gave him my number and I walked away. The empire I built was never just ambition. It was survival. Proof that I could endure what should have destroyed me. But healing, that's something different. It means carrying the past without letting it define the future. So I'll ask you this. If the people meant to protect you betrayed that trust, what did you do? Did you forgive? Or did you rebuild alone? I'm still searching for my answer.